Could I have a resolution, please, to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
And thanks, Liz. A couple of different topics that we're looking at tonight. In your folder is this piece of paper. It says masking at Rocky River. And we have been working on it to make for distribution when we return from winter break. And it tries to really clarify what is the mask to stay policy, which was just the protocol, not policy, but a protocol established by the Ohio Department of Health. And we share information directly about close contacts and direct contacts, who could participate in the mask to stay, where does it have to occur, the contact, and then finally, will we follow public health orders? And of course we will. So I share this with you. If you have input, please share it with me tomorrow. I'd be happy to work on it, and then I know we're planning on sending it out sooner than later, just so everybody's well aware of what the mask to stay policy is, because I've already had people asking me about if, in fact, the masking mandate K-5 goes away, is there a chance my child could still have to mask? And the answer is clearly yes. And that's if they do the mask to stay protocol or they have to quarantine. But if the direct contact occurs at home, and you know that's a major factor here, because I can tell you in our elementary school we have 24 children in quarantine, of which I don't want to misspeak, but 58% of the people who are in the protocol of quarantine are, because it's 14 out of 24 are family exposures, and that when you're a family exposure, you cannot participate in the mask to stay policy protocol. So I just want to be clear with parents on that. Also, we want to communicate that we do have tests available. If somebody wants to ask for a test, all they need to do is call the building office. And I know Jen has done a great job, and we're continuing to ask for them as much as we can. To get them, you take them home. It's all private. There's no problem. We're happy to give them out as long as we have them. And then once obviously we don't have them, we're not going to be producing them and providing them.
Any other business before we have some public participation?
Mrs. Leitch and Mr. Schultz, you guys will be receiving this letter tomorrow, just so you know. Attorneys Warner Mendenhall and Tom Connors are publicizing how they help Ohioans bring lawsuits against the school boards. Boards do not have unrestricted powers to mandate students or staff to undergo measures the board thinks will prevent the spread of contagious or infectious disease. Ohio Senate Bill 22 limited the powers of all health districts. A board of health or city health district has no authority to order a person to undergo preventative measures for the spread of contagion unless the individual has been medically diagnosed with the disease that is subject of an order or has been proven to come in contact with the person who is medically diagnosed. In other words, no health board can make an order that applies to a whole population to prevent the spread of COVID. Presently, the school board has made an order that applies to the whole population of students in certain grades, and this mandate is ripe for a legal challenge in court. Please have your legal counsel send me a signed letter explaining where Ohio laws or board regulations describe the board's authority to exercise powers that are beyond the powers that health boards have been given by our Ohio legislature. That will be it for me tonight. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mr. David Farland. Thank you.
Okay. I'm reading a statement that I posted on the internet with citations, so it's going to be kind of dry, and there's the website. I ask you to lift mask mandates because you don't have authority to enact them in the first place. You are interfering with parents' rights to decide what's best for their children, and masks are useless at stopping the spread of COVID. You don't have the authority to declare a medical emergency. The Ohio Constitution requires 2/3 of the votes of state legislators to enact emergency law for preservation of health. The board policy that you reenacted in August says you are implementing edicts for masks from public health officials and government. However, there are no edicts, orders, or regulations in effect right now mandating masks. There's only guidance. Ohio health districts are not even allowed to enact regulations over certain age groups, so you wouldn't have powers that they don't have. If you're getting your information from ODH, CDC, or Cleveland Clinic, I challenge that you are being fed ideas not supported by data. Before you force something harmful on children, it's irresponsible for you to trust one narrative. Children are not in a dangerous situation of elevated communicable disease. As of September, there have been over 600 deaths in children from influenza, but less than 400 from COVID, and every single one had pre-existing conditions. The number counts of those sick with COVID are skewed because they are using PCR tests. The inventor of it says it's not a diagnostic test. The cycle threshold of PCR tests have been too high, so they are inflating the numbers. Early treatments of COVID are effective. Mainstream media, Google, and Facebook are censoring news about treatment. Don't force school kids to wear masks because of guidance from ODH, Cleveland Clinic, and the CDC. Instead, look deeper into those sources' footnotes with the help of an industrial hygiene engineer who shows their conclusions are unfounded. Moreover, you'd be hard-pressed to find any study proving a population wearing masks had less spread than masks.
Thank you.
Well, the one thing I'm going to say is that in coming years, we're going to look back, and you're going to look like the people who said that leeches helped stop the illness.
It's always good to see folks contribute. I didn't see you earlier. There you are. All right. Hello, Chuck.
Kathy, thank you for your 20 years of service. Our school system is a much better place because of all your hard work. I think that the discussion at the school board meeting about there was a need for a May 2022 levy shows that the board acts in a deliberate, professional manner when it comes to the possibility of having to increase taxes on all homeowners and businesses of the city. The taxpayers are counting on this body to have many more discussions on this matter before the decision to increase taxes is made. The decision to put a levy on the ballot is really a negotiation of the board's contract, with close to 80% of the revenues going toward personnel costs and sticking to 4 to 5 year levy cycles. Basically, the board has decided the amount of the salary increases that have been included in the new contracts when it puts a levy on the ballot. So many more discussions are needed before a levy vote is taken. In order to have these discussions, you need the privacy of the executive session and the use of spreadsheet, Excel, to see how much millage is needed for various variables are changed. With many six-figure employees making above market rate salaries, you can see the results of giving lower paid employees larger raises using a simulator. You can look at the concept of lengthening the levy cycle to say 10 years to avoid levy fatigue. The simulator will immediately show you the financial results of saying giving a 2% raise to employees under 10 years and a 1% to employees with over 10 years of service. This district is blessed with a treasurer that can develop this simulator, and I am confident that it will select a new board president that will call these executive sessions to spend the time to review all the many options before any vote to put a levy on the ballot is taken.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. Next week. Alice?
Members of the Board of Education, particularly members Beach, Fancher, and Gephardt, are neighbors, whose terms are concluding. I just want to say a few quick words of thanks and gratitude on behalf of your neighbors in Rocky River. Thank you for your commitment to serving our youngest community members and always ensuring their education and well-being are closely safeguarded. You all have dedicated years of service to our community, some of you decades. Cumulatively, I don't think I can count high enough to convey the number of hours you all must have dedicated to our school district. Thank you for holding our schools to the highest standard. We collectively will do our best to continue that tradition. To incoming members Corrigan, Negre, and Wilson, sincere thanks and gratitude to you as well for the dedication you are pledging to our community. We are confident you will continue to work for all students, keeping their health and safety paramount, supporting our wonderful professional educators as they do their excellent work, teaching our children to be engaged, active, informed, and yes, caring members of our community. From facts and math to life skills, communication skills, physical fitness, all the things that will help our kids grow into responsible adults in a global society. We are entrusting the maintenance of excellence and to you in our district. Public servants, all of you, thank you.
Thank you.
Jules?
Yes, come on up.
First, I just want to say thank you to the outgoing board members, my neighbor, John, Kathy, especially Ruth, thank you for those words. Thank you for your support, and I'm truly sorry. It's really a loss to all of us. I do appreciate that you acknowledge that medical experts verify that masking does help, and they believe universal masking is optimal. There is no reputable data that masks are dangerous to children, absolutely none. Ohio is currently one of 6 states that make up half of all of the COVID hospitalizations in this country. Half. More locally, Cleveland Clinic and UH have said that their ERs and their facilities are at or about to be at the highest levels they've been. And yes, Rocky River may not be spiking, but where do we all go when we need to go to the hospital? We can argue about zip code and individual rights, but controlling community spread should be every school and business's priority right now, for both ethical and legal. We bring up legal reasons. Lawyers have been very clear. When your policies follow the experts, you are covered. I'm sorry, when you stray from that, it's a crapshoot. We need to use every mitigation strategy available, and God forbid, I do not want my kid back in my basement going to school. Like, I cannot go back there. So January is not the time to be lifting mitigation strategies. It's perhaps the time to be reviewing and maybe even bringing them back. And happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you.
Next, we begin Robbins.
Was a rough year, thanks in part to conflicts of interest. Jill James is a board member of the Rocky River Library, appointed by this body. She is to be commended for doing the right thing. When the library considered changing healthcare vendors, Mrs. James did not take part in the vote because she has and currently does work in the insurance industry. Next year, this board will have 2 members who have worked or are currently working in the diversity industry. Why is this a concern? Conflicts of interest are detrimental to the credibility and reputation of the Rocky River School District. Our superintendent was on the board of directors of the Diversity Center in Northeast Ohio when he substantially increased their contract over previous years. Yet, when parents requested to see the curriculum of the Diversity Center, which is their legal right, the same superintendent allowed considerable delay. Was he looking out for the interests of his students and their families, or was he looking out for the interest of the Diversity Center? We know what many in this community would answer, and can you blame them? It's the reason conflict of interest policies exist. Indeed, the superintendent's resignation from that same board has been described as a positive move by members of this board. We do have these concerns in common. We will soon have new board members with extensive history in the diversity industry. How will we know if they're looking out for the interests of the district versus the interests of the diversity industry, which has put food on their tables? Speaking as a member of the Rocky River Citizens for Transparency, we respectfully request this not be overlooked.
Thank you. Yes, I would.
TikTok issue. However, as I was sitting here, I received 20 texts and calls from parents going, why have we not released a statement? So I really think this meeting should have been backseated due to that. We've been protecting our children for 2 years over something that has proven not to harm children. You know what harms children? Guns and violence. We saw what happened with the last TikTok challenge. It was just damage to property. This is a nationwide thing. Schools are being canceled over this. You want to talk liability? We know there's possibly an imminent threat. We know how impressionable kids are. My children aren't afraid of air. I'm not afraid for my children to breathe air, but I am afraid of violence that could potentially happen. So I urge you to take this a little more seriously and get that message out. If parents are already asleep, they're not going to hear about this. So it is out there. Parents are infuriated. Get that message out there. And please, I know you said you've notified the police department, but one police member standing at a door is not going to potentially keep kids out of harm. So this, I think, should be a huge thing that we take seriously. So, thank you.
This is basically the message was on this board.
Was sent out? Greg Stout? Okay, great, thank you. Thank you for getting it out as soon as you could. Thank you. Anything else?